On the morning of June 6, 1944, as Allied soldiers pushed through crashing waves and machine gun fire onto the beaches of Normandy, guided by shouted orders and fragmented radio messages, one of the most quietly influential tools shaping their movement inland was not a weapon or a secret piece of intelligence, or not even a military map, but a small travel guide that had originally been printed decades earlier for tourists who simply wanted to know which roads to take and where they might stop for the night. This unlikely object, known today around the world for fine dining and culinary prestige, had never been designed for war. Yet in the chaos of the largest amphibious invasion in human history, the Michelin Guide found itself playing an unexpected role in helping the Allies navigate a country under occupation. To understand how this happened, it is necessary to return to France at the turn of the 20th century. When automobiles were rare, long-distance driving was an adventure rather than a routine activity. And two brothers named André and Edouard Michelin were searching for ways to encourage people to use their cars more often, knowing that more driving meant more worn tires and, inevitably, more business for their company. In 1900, they published a simple booklet intended to make travel easier, filling its pages with practical information about road distances, town layouts, repair shops, fuel stops, and modest places to eat or sleep, all presented with a level of care and accuracy that reflected the Michelin brothers' belief that usefulness rather than spectacle would earn trust over time. As the decades passed and automobiles spread across Europe, the Michelin Guide evolved alongside them, expanding its coverage and refining its standards, eventually becoming famous for its restaurant ratings. Yet beneath the culinary reputation that would later define it, the guide was always anchored by something far more fundamental, which was an unusually deep understanding of geography and movement. By the 1920s and 1930s, Michelin maps had earned a reputation for being among the most reliable in Europe, not because they were decorative or ambitious in scale, but because they documented the details that actually mattered to people on the ground, including narrow rural roads, minor intersections, gradients, bridges, village layouts, and distances measured with careful precision, often surpassing the accuracy of official government maps. These maps were created to serve motorists seeking efficiency and confidence on unfamiliar roads. Yet when Europe descended into war, the value of that precision took on an entirely different meaning. In 1940, when Nazi Germany invaded and occupied France, the physical landscape of the country began to change under the pressure of military control. As roads were damaged or repurposed, signs were removed to confuse travelers, and infrastructure was altered to restrict movement, making accurate navigation increasingly difficult not only for civilians, but even for occupying forces. During the occupation, Michelin ceased publishing new guides, yet millions of pre-war editions already existed, preserving a detailed snapshot of France as it had been before destruction and manipulation reshaped its terrain, offering a view of the country that was unfiltered, uncensored, and remarkably intact. As Allied planners in Britain began preparing for the liberation of Western Europe, they faced a challenge that went far beyond landing troops on hostile beaches, because once those soldiers were ashore, success would depend on how quickly and efficiently they could move inland through unfamiliar territory under constant threat, while maintaining supply lines that stretched across the English Channel. Operation Overlord, the plan for the D-Day invasion, was therefore as much a logistical and navigational problem as it was a military one, requiring planners to understand which roads could support tanks, which routes could handle supply convoys, how villages were connected, and how far units could realistically advance before exhaustion, darkness, or German counterattacks forced them to stop. In an era before satellite imagery, GPS, or real-time digital mapping, aerial reconnaissance provided only partial answers, while captured German maps were often incomplete, outdated, or intentionally misleading, leaving Allied commanders in search of a source of information that was both trustworthy and practical. It was at this moment that the Michelin Guide, originally created to sell tires and promote leisure travel, began to reveal its unexpected strategic value. As Allied intelligence officers quietly gathered pre-war Michelin maps and guides, recognizing that they offered a level of ground truth that few other sources could match. The usefulness of these guides became so apparent that the United States Army formally requested permission from Michelin to reproduce parts of the 1939 guide for official military use. A request that Michelin accepted, leading to the creation of a special wartime reprint that stripped away restaurants, hotels, and tourist information, leaving behind only what mattered for an advancing army, which was the road networks, town layouts, distances, and key intersections that would shape movement across occupied France. Marked clearly for official use only, this transformed travel guide circulated among Allied officers as a quiet but critical reference, bridging the gap between strategic planning and the unpredictable reality of combat on the ground. When Allied forces finally landed in Normandy on June 6, 1944, the invasion unfolded amid confusion and improvisation. As units landed off target, communication broke down and smoke, fog, and chaos obscured familiar landmarks, forcing officers to rely on whatever reliable information they had at hand to orient themselves and make rapid decisions. In these conditions, Michelin maps helped commanders understand which roads could support armored vehicles, which paths avoided marshland or impassable terrain, and how the complex web of rural routes connected villages and fields beyond the beaches, knowledge that proved especially vital in Normandy's bocage, where dense hedgerows transformed the countryside into a maze of natural fortifications. The Michelin Guide did not decide battles or replace strategy, yet by reducing uncertainty and friction at critical moments, it allowed units to move with greater confidence and efficiency, a contribution that, while invisible in dramatic battlefield narratives, had real consequences for momentum and survival. There is a quiet irony in the fact that a guide designed to promote comfort, curiosity, and enjoyment ultimately played a role in one of the most violent chapters of human history, as the same roads once mapped for tourists became supply routes for armies. The same villages once noted for inns became strategic objectives, and the same distances once measured for leisurely drives now determined how far soldiers could advance before nightfall. After the war, as France rebuilt and normal life slowly returned, Michelin resumed publishing its guides, restaurants reopened, travel flourished once more, and the Michelin star system rose to global prominence, while the guide's wartime contribution faded into the background, overshadowed by tanks, generals, and iconic battles. Yet this story endures as a reminder that history is not shaped solely by weapons or commanders, but also by preparation, information, and tools whose original purpose may have had nothing to do with conflict, because in the end, a book created to help people travel more easily ended up helping an army find its way, and in doing so, helped change the course of the 20th century. And the next time the Michelin Guide is mentioned as a symbol of culinary excellence, it is worth remembering that long before it told the world where to eat, it helped show an army where to go.